Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Project Flux podcast. Today, we have John Hetherington over from Canada. So we're
Yes,
very lucky. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. Seem to have brought the rain, but not the cold, which is good.
Yeah, well, you can't have everything, you know. We've got plenty to offer here in the UK, but the weather is never one of
No,
them.
true, exactly. But great to be here.
Excellent. And we got Yoshi with us. How are you, Yoshi?
I'm good, mate. But like the weather is the worst day. It's grey. It's like I was saying to James, it's a bit like when you're in The Apprentice. You know when the losers lose The Apprentice and they have to go
Yes,
to the cafe and it's all completely grey and moody.
miserable.
It has just been like that, isn't it?
Well, we're going to bring a ray of light to everyone's day
Wow.
today, talking about, we've got loads to discuss actually, because we're going to do the year roundup, like what's happened in 2025. And then even more excitingly, let's make some predictions, which no doubt we'll look back in a year's time and be incorrect because it's so hard to keep up, but it's going to be good fun to have a bit of a stab anyway.
Yeah.
So let's start with 2025. I mean, from an AI point of view, how would you kind of sum up 2025?
So 2025 was interesting because after the whole 2022 release and then 2023 hype and 2024 even a bit more hype, 2025 seemed to be a bit more of a trough of disillusionment, to quote the Gartner hype cycle. It seems to be a lot of people were like, is it really giving what we expect? And is it giving the value we're promised? All these hype around the massive cost saving, massive time savings. So I saw a lot of companies really trying to dig into, okay, prove it to me, show me the value. There's a lot of experimentation, but it's spent a lot of time. Okay, let's get into the real numbers. And I think that's going to be a trend in 2026, which we'll get onto later. But curious what you've seen around 2025 as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's entirely healthy as well, by the way. I think, having this it's important that we start sort of proving the concept now. And I think going into when we start making our predictions about 2026, I think it's going to be a lot more around actually like moving out of the testing phase, moving into the real world phase. But I think 2025 has been, you're right, it's been a bit of a stabilization period. We have moved. I think it's really difficult to like from week to week, month to month, see the changes. But when you look, I was doing a little review of the year and how much has changed.
Yeah.
If you go all the way back to January, where DeepSeek came out, that was the big thing. And then we move forward to now where we've got GPT 5.2 just come out, image generation, nano banana, all those things.
Right.
Actually, the technology's moved quite a bit in there.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
I mean, there was a bit of a realization as well in 2025 that AI was sold to us as a technology with incredible intelligence. And in 2023 through to now, there's this extreme focus on intelligence benchmarks, right? Anything from quantitative and textual reasoning through to abstract reasoning with RKGI. And people were so convinced, they were hearing the buzzwords, PhD level intelligence, right? They were even hearing words of AGI and ASI, right? And because of that, well, it was reasonable to assume it would work for business level problems, right? Straight off the box. But that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Now people are starting, and I always say to James, it's a bit like when you first started speaking to these things, it was a bit like a Turing test, right? They were so well versed and they sounded so human-like and smarter than the average person. And we were taken away by that. But now when you speak to an AI and you realize if you're speaking to it inside your specialism, it's not that smart, right?
Yes.
But when you're speaking to it as something outside specialism, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And I think
Good
that's
point.
where the failure was. We were so focused on that singular dimension of intelligence, we kind of overlooked the amount of work needed to actually implement these things into businesses.
I agree. I mean, from a North America, Canada, US point of view, I always go back to the 60-20-20 rule of 60% of people are like, meh, it's okay. Let me know when it's important because I'm busy doing the day job. I'm just running my business. I'm just dealing with these forms. I'm processing it, delivering these projects. There's 20% who love it, can't get enough of it. Let's go. Give me AI all day. And there's 20% who just hate it, think it's wrong, don't want to touch it.
But that's the bit, the doomers, gloomers, zoomers, Reid Hoffman.
Exactly. And it's interesting because we're involved in AI. We see it, use it every day. But a lot of the companies I work with, energy, oil and gas, financial services, or healthcare, a lot of them are not really using AI that much. They're still getting into it. There's still a lot of companies only rolling out Copilot licenses on trial basis to a limited audience. It's surprising.
What's the reason for that, do you think? Is it
cost?
Is the cost?
Yeah, I think, again, back to that, where we started with the return on investment for AI, they're having to invest in Copilot licenses, and they're going, this is going to cost $30-$40 or pounds per seat.
It's expensive when you times it up by a big company.
Yeah.
It becomes like, okay, we need to prove this. And what I think is one of the big things that I thought was interesting in 2025 was the MIT study that came out. We've discussed it a few times, which was a real wake-up call for me, because it showed that 95% of AI pilots or projects are failing. Obviously, you got to dig a bit deeper to find out the reasons why. A lot of it's to do with culture.
Yes.
And I think this is the wake-up call that people have had in 2025. Certainly for me, and I'm saying it a lot, is that this isn't a tech rollout. It's a culture change. We need to start changing how people react to this, and don't think of it as something that's going to be given to you by your IT team.
Oh, totally. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you think, Yoshi, as well, in terms of I always use the 3A model of assess, absorb, and then align. So assess is what can you use AI for, and just understanding what it's all about. Absorb it is go learn it, give your teams the training, the tools, the time to use AI. And then align is you as a leader, because everyone's a leader in their own ways. Here's how we can use AI to solve problems, and then encourage your business, your team, and your departments to actually work towards it with champions and user groups and community of interest. Yoshi, I don't know.
I mean, this is spot on, right? I mean, the study found the biggest factor was that so many implementation of projects of AI were stuck in pilot phases.
Right.
So it was the rollout of Copilot. Now we're seeing Satya Nadella saying that there's so many unused seats within businesses. And I kind of refer it back to, it's a systems thinking principle. So it's Ashby's law of requisite variety, right? And that basically says when you're trying to solve a variety of problems, you have to have equal to or more variety of solutions in your business.
Okay, yeah,
so,
interesting.
And it's really important. So businesses are heavily complex because they're solving complex problems. So we have governance, frameworks, partnerships, collaborations, departments, and within departments we have specialisms and all these different things to match that complexity. So people were rolling out Copilot without embedding it into the business, like you mentioned, without the upskilling, without learning workflows. You take it off the shelf, you put it into your business, you haven't embedded AI into the complexity of your business, therefore it will fail to solve complex problems. Right?
Yep.
So the most important thing was having a lean team that can ship quickly, be model agnostic. It was making sure that you're upskilling, learning how to prompt, engineer context. And I look at complexity and context as similar, right?
Yes.
So if you can build the context of your business into the AI, it can start to solve more complex problems. And like you said, we have to work out what those workflows are that AI can solve.
Yes.
And so I had this matrix, which was, mapping it on complexity and value. And you kind of want to go for the low quick wins, high value, low complexity. But as you can build AI into the complexity of your business, you can focus on the strategic bets, right? The high complexity, high value. And I think businesses need to map that out. If they don't, they're going to be stuck in the low parts, which is rewording emails or writing meeting minutes.
I'll just build on that as well, because you mentioned context, and that's a great acronym for what I use for building prompts. Because a lot of folks, they get Copilot license or Gemini or whatever, and off you go use it. And
they use it like Google.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing exactly, how do I plan my vacation, holiday or whatever? And that's cool, but it doesn't really get into the meat of a business problem, like you say. And I like the acronym of CRAFT, the CRAFT. Yeah. So context, to your point, Yoshi, that's the first one. Context. What is my problem that I'm solving? R is the role, and act like a expert in quantity surveying or project management. The A is the action. What do you want it to do? Review this document. The F is the format. So what is the output you want to see? Yeah. And T is the tone. Do you want it to be professional, friendly, warm, board focused? So that CRAFT acronym is a really good way to just start with that.
I love that. We use a similar one, but that's the one that we've used is the CRIT framework, which is context, role, interview, and task. But actually the tone thing is quite interesting, because that doesn't include the tone. And I think you're right, that's really important. How do you want it to address you?
Yes. And I have so many people come back and say, I've used AI and it's wrong, or it didn't give me what I want. And you look at their prompts and people think it's going to your point around intelligence, it's going to be intelligent, know what I want, and just give me what I want immediately. And they're one-line prompts of go review this legal paper and give me the top 5 citations. And there's just no context, no role, no output. No
and you want that model to automatically be connected to your business's policies, or the methodology, or RICS or APM guidance. You want it to have access to your data. And so my analogy within humans is, well, when businesses first hired a person who could be super smart, if they don't know how your business operates, they don't know the industry, they're not that well versed in that sector, well, they're going to fail. And because of that reason, we have onboarding processes.
Yeah.
So then you go in time and you realize, oh, they know how we work. You know, we have these 15-minute stand-ups. You know, we can talk to so-and-so. They know how to get things done. A few months in, then you start to see the value coming out. So I think it's the same thing with AI. You need to embed them into the complexity of your business.
Treat it like a coworker.
Exactly. Like an assistant.
Literally.
That's what it should be. Can I move on to talk about, so with all these models that have come out and we're in this AI arms race, it feels like there's a new one every time. Into where we are, December 2025, which one's your favourite one now? Which one?
My favourite tool?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question.
I know what yours is.
Well, it keeps changing almost hour by hour.
So my go-to is ChatGPT right now, 5.2 especially, because it will switch between the different modes automatically and gives the best overall response.
Yeah.
But it does depend. So, for example, if I want more conversational output for communications, I'll go to Claude. For deep research, I'll go to Manus. Manus is actually...
I love you. You're one of the first people I've met who know what I'm talking about when I say Manus.
Yeah, I love it. I love the agent mode of that because... so for example, and again, probably shouldn't share this, but you can downloading YouTube. So ChatGPT, can you download this YouTube video and transcribe it?
No.
It says yes, but then doesn't. It's weird.
Yeah.
It says I can, but Manus can because it's going out and finding. I don't know how it does it, but it talks you through it and it's showing you finding agents or other programs to actually download it.
And it's Claude under the hood, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a much deeper research version, which I love. And then Figma for designs and presentations. So I each use a range and then I'll start putting them into each other. So I might create content in Manus and then I'll put it into ChatGPT to say, please improve on this. What am I missing? And then I might bounce that into Claude. So I'm often bouncing them off each other as well.
It's a stacking idea, isn't it? Stacking GPTs.
But can you see the learning curve now in AI? So when this was first released, it was highly accessible. Anyone could use it. But now you get deeper into the wave and it's like you're using multiple different tools to do multiple different things. Models themselves are divergent. You mentioned Claude. I mean, Amanda Askell did amazing work putting a personality into Claude. And that's missing in Gemini.
Yes.
But you only when you know and familiarize yourself with these tools do you know there actually is a bit of a learning curve now.
Yeah,
there is now, yeah. I mean, back in February, of course, we talked about DeepSeek. February, ChatGPT released Deep Research. I'm surprised how many people don't know that exists because they've got to click one more button.
Yeah,
It's like, it's there for you, but you're right. The learning curve, we've added a bit of complexity, a bit of friction, which means that probably 90% of people don't even know that exists. And it's so powerful.
It's only February. It was released in February.
It
seems longer ago to me because I've been using it for so long. But wow, the year has flown by.
That's what I mean. All these little things, and you build it up. Of course, there was then GPT. Well, we had GPT 4.5, didn't we? Which was like a weird one, and then they quickly relegated
it was for writing, wasn't it? It was literally for writing, and it wasn't very good.
It wasn't very good.
They sunsetted it quite quickly.
And I found a lot of businesses going, "That's great. How do I get home to see my kids on time?" You know what I mean? Or how do I get home or spend more time on vacation? I'm stressed out, busy on this project. So all this AI thing is amazing. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of folks I'm encouraging our teams and businesses just to start, just look at it. But yes, you are going to be doing your day job. You need to free up time somehow. And that's the real challenge for a lot of businesses. They're so wrapped into the weeds of process and existing business complexity, to your point about problems. They don't have time for AI right now. And I do get that. But going forward, we're going to have to talk about how we can help people.
But it's funny you actually mentioned that because people are saying process. And we had a conversation the other day. And I was kind of arguing the point that there's a potential decoupling of process and AI. Because
tell me more.
Because you've not got to just follow a standard process now. You know, me, you, and James will find a solution for something in a very different way.
Using different tools.
Using different tools. So because we're used to AI, we have our own personalized tools. Companies would traditionally give you a standard operating procedure or a process of how to do something, but it's not always the right way. You know, and now people they're empowered and they have the tools and the intelligence in AI to be able to do it in their own way, as long as they're still getting to the right answer and there's a level of explainability. And I think that's why I sensed a bit of decoupling. And if we just rely on traditional ways of doing things, we're just getting the AI to do what it was doing before. It doesn't mean it's the better way of doing it.
Yeah, you're touching on one of the trends I have for 2026, which is citizen innovation, as in anyone can do innovation. We'll come back to that when we get on to 2026.
So just kind of wrapping up sort of 2025 then, there were a couple of other big stories that I thought are worth sort of reflecting on. The big one was the Deloitte story. I mean, I thought that was a real interesting piece. And we'll put the links to all of these episodes if people want to dig deeper. But effectively, this was when they had to pay the Australian government back 250,000 Australian dollars for a report, which
There's
was
also a Canadian version of that as
There was
well.
a Canadian. I'm sure there's
Nova
loads of
Scotia and
versions.
Labrador, yeah.
And you know, my point with that is that wasn't a tech failure. That was a human failure.
Yep, because they didn't check the results.
Somebody didn't check the results.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so then you get these people saying, well, AI is rubbish because this happens. It's a risk. It's like, well, that's the same risk as if you let an intern do it. So I thought that was a really interesting story. And then the other one, of course, was the RICS releasing their guidelines. So the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. What did you make of that?
I think it's great. It does all the bit that stood out for me is transparency. Well, accountability was in there, declaring when you're using AI was in there, which explainability, which to me almost a table stakes, as in if you're serving clients or you're delivering something to someone, you need to know how you're using the AI to create that result. Similar to the Deloitte example. Yeah. I mean, digging into that Deloitte situation in the Canadian version, the report was substantial and the recommendations were human generated. It was the specific Canadian issue was some of the citations were made up or incorrect, and that was where they got dinged for. Yeah. But the actual overall deliverable was apparently solid and good recommendations. So to that point, they should be saying, here's how we used AI on these parts, but then the human part on these parts, and this is why it's worth the money. So the transparency thing is key to me, as in making sure you know how you're using AI and being able to explain that to your clients, because they'll expect more. They'll expect you to use AI. They should do, because they're probably using AI. But then that should be reflected in the fees if you're providing a service to a client. Yes. So the whole transparency thing is big for me.
Do you still see people using AI and then treating it as a dirty secret?
Yes, totally.
I find that really weird. I mean, there was a story I had earlier in the year, which was 2 stories I heard in the space of 1 week. It's worth reflecting on, where one person was telling me how they were made to feel like what they were cheating when using AI. And they kind of said, well, I'm never going to tell anyone again. And then another CTO of a very famous company, tech company, had the opposite approach, asked one of their workers whether they were using AI. They were like sheepishly saying, well, maybe a bit. And he said, no, I want you using AI. I'm paying you good money. Why would you not? And I thought that different of approach. Can you imagine those 2 different people, how they're going to feel going forward? One of them will probably feel very empowered to use AI more. The other one will be like,
there's a real company tone there, culture thing, back to the people side of it. And I know you've got a point to come in there, Yoshi, as well, but just real quick. So I was working with a client, their leadership team was creating board reports, and the board asked them, hey, was this created by AI or was this AI used? And the leadership team said no, even though it was in there. But the reason they said no is because the tone of the company was, we're not there yet with AI. So we want, they were a bit behind. So hence we shouldn't be using it. I actually coached that leadership team to say, well, you should be asking the board, how can we use AI? It's not more did you use AI? It's more, here's going forward how we should be using AI to educate the board to want to use AI more and the company to want to use it. So it's encouraging the use, but other companies all over AI, to your point, everyone should be using it.
I wonder if people went through the same thing like when spreadsheets first came out. People were kind of using it and not telling anyone.
Well, the internet. I remember when the internet was banned at work, as in you couldn't even go online to search. It was restricted. I mean, this is back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I first started my career. But at that point, it was heavily, when we did get Internet Explorer 3, it was very locked down. You couldn't get to certain sites. It was, even then it was monitored. So even if you're on it, they're tracking everything you do.
I remember my first job, you had to put your phone away in a locker at the start of the day. Yeah. So things change, things evolve.
But I think what I was just going to mention around the ROI problem is, and I've said this to you, James, a few times, people, and I mentioned it, there's another law, right? Goodhart's law basically says, when a measure becomes a target, it no longer becomes a good measure. And in terms of ROI, businesses are very heavy on return on investment and profitability. In fact, the MIT study, the actual finding was 95% of generative AI studies don't have an impact on profit and loss. That was it.
It was very
specific. Class as failure.
Yeah. So now you take that and you think of the pressure that businesses want to save time so they can reallocate someone's time onto new work. Now, what if you're overworked already?
Yeah.
If you're overworked already, you're going to use AI, you're going to get the time savings, and that hidden time saving you've made, you're going to use it to get some of your day back. That's why I think there's an issue with ROI. People aren't reporting it because they're going to tell people, yeah, I did the work, but it took me half a day. It didn't. It took them 2 hours or 1 hour using AI, but they get 3 hours now to go back and spend time to just unwind and actually just take their mind off of the computer.
Yeah,
I think that's another part.
Totally. I number of accounting firms I work with where month-end close, so closing the books in a month. Usually it could be anything from 5 days through to 20 days. AI is great for reducing some of the reporting, getting the data from databases into the reports. I've had a pushback from accountants saying, if I reduce the time spent on reporting, what do I do instead? I don't want to reduce my time because this is my job. I get self-worth from reporting.
Ah, right.
So to your point, my question is, when you report time saved, my first question is, well, what are you doing with that time? Because if you're just doing more meetings, more Zooms, more Teams, more emails, it's not getting anything better. But then building on that, it's the leader, back to the 3 A's of a line, the leaders need to say, okay, when you save time, here's where I want you to spend it. I want you to spend it on these strategic projects or new problems to solve.
And you see that point there. This is what I think a lot of companies will be prioritizing this year. Because we're all hearing AI can automate repetitive tasks, and it will allow you to do two things: spend more time with your clients and people and do more strategic work. My question back to everyone is, well, what is the strategic work?
Yes.
And I think that's where we need clarity. It's what does that look like? Once we nail that, then people will have a lot less reservations about using AI.
Yeah, because it's going into the unknown. Human beings are really uncomfortable with uncertainty. And basically, we're change and uncertainty. But I was saying to somebody, yeah, we're going to take your work away. We're not quite sure what you're going to do with that time. It's like, well, hang on, back up. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. Thank you very much. But I agree. I think this is going to be a big feature 2026, which leads us nicely, really nicely into the second part of this of the show, which is let's start some predictions. So well, let's start with you, John. What do you think 2026 is going to hold for us?
Okay, so I have many, but let's build on that one actually specifically. I do think the whole critical thinking, communication skills, the non-AI skills are actually going to be more important. Don't get me wrong, you still need to do AI and learn prompting, learn the models, learn how to use it. But building on exactly what you're saying, it's what are strategic projects? So if I'm saving time, my critical thinking is going to be, okay, a great example is technical architecture documents for IT projects, a big complex design document similar to building documents, and spends weeks on that sometimes. AI will speed that up. Okay, great. But what's the process in terms of the overall project delivery for that architecture document? Do we need to speed up the process around approvals? How do we get access to the information? How do we and then you get into IT system fixes. Okay, how do we fix the processes, the systems quicker and when they're in production? So it's that critical thinking to say, okay, you save time here. What are you going to do with that time later on to provide a better service to your client?
It's like metal work, isn't it?
Yep.
It's how do you work better?
Yes, exactly. And so number one skill for me is going to be non-AI, critical thinking, communication skills, marketing, presenting your ideas, getting buy-in to new ideas.
I know it's a really horrible cliched word. It's that human-centric, whatever we say, but it's so true, isn't it? And it's this we've been talking about it for a while. This human AI hybrid thing is going to become more and more real in 2026.
Yeah, it does. People say AI is artificial intelligence. To me, it accelerates impact. AI is accelerating impact of you. It makes you do a better job. So and to your point, it's a coworker to accelerate your impact.
Yeah. That's because one thing I've seen through 2025, just backing up a bit, is whenever I do presentations or anything, I always ask people how many people are using it. Beginning of the year, it was like maybe a third of the room would put their hands up.
Okay.
By the end of the year, it's everyone. We've passed that threshold. Everyone's now tried it, I think.
Yes.
I think you're right. Next year, it's now like, right, how do I make this an integral part of my workflow, and then freeing me up to do human activities?
And that'll be
I think it's a huge opportunity because we spent the last 2 decades retreating behind the screen.
Yes.
Which has really impacted the ability to communicate, especially for younger people. So the ability to take us away from doing those behind the screen tasks so that we can spend more time chatting.
Yeah.
And this is amazing.
About how we're accelerating the impact of the company or the team. It is very much, what do we do with this time? What are the projects we need to do to solve problems for customers? And it is about that communication. The leaders are moving from what is AI to what does it do for me? What does it do for our company? That's the next definitely one of the first trends, I'd say.
The other one, if I come in, I think one of the stories from 2025 towards the end of the year was AECOM's acquisition of Consigli. It was 390 million, was it? Something like that. Yeah. So that was interesting in itself. And that's still got to play out. It's still unclear exactly what that means. But the fact that we've got consultancies now buying tech companies means I think a big feature of 2026 is going to be the start of this it's going to get quite opaque. We're going to blur lines between what is a consultancy and what's a tech company.
But what does that tell you? Well, what does that tell you that AECOM had to make 390 million or so acquisition of a tech firm?
I think it tells me that it's a bet, isn't it? Because there's no certainties in it as well, but they're trying to lead the conversation, I think. And they've obviously seen they haven't just gone into it blind. They're probably using it. There's probably been relationships with them already, and they've got a plan, which is the bit what I'm saying is a bit opaque at the moment. We're not quite sure what that means, but what it's going to do is going to wake other people up. It's going to wake up other consultancies who will all be now saying, well, AECOM have done this, what should we do? And I think what's going to be interesting is the models that emerge. Is everyone going to do the same thing, like go and buy out a AI company, or some of them going to sort of back up and say, actually, no, we're going to be human consultancy?
I agree.
Did that happen?
And it's similar things repeating. We talk about history. When software development came along, a lot of self-coding in companies are building their own code. I remember the Fox Pro days and COBOL days of year 2000. It was that long ago. But now it's okay. Then it got through the whole, do you buy it, do you build it, or do you rent it, for the whole SaaS model? And the same is happening with AI. The acquisitions now, the smart ones are actually buying it, or partnerships, integrations with other companies have already got the AI models. QuickBooks and OpenAI partnership is a great example for small and medium businesses to now get access to AI in QuickBooks for their accounting. QuickBooks are saying, hey, we can't build our own AI. We're too far behind. So they've done a really smart move of just partnering with an AI company to offer that service within the software, which then increases the revenue of their software.
Do you think, because for AECOM, the pressure's on now, right? You spend that much money, a lot of money. Do you think there is some concern of sunken cost?
Absolutely. They now have to leverage that. I mean, to your point, it'd be interesting the behind the scenes about why they did that deal. Often the deals are buying a customer base or a presence in a market or some specific IP. The number of deals I've seen over time, all the way back from Nortel, which is a big Canadian telecommunications company, or maybe you talk about Nokia. There was always an acquisition for a specific technology other than the bigger company.
Yeah.
So this deal here, I suspect there's some good financial reasoning behind the scenes, but bottom line to customers, there's going to be an expectation to, hey, yeah, you've spent a lot of money. Yeah. Where's my better service, cheaper cost, or improved customer service? Absolutely.
What I'm not clear on, and maybe it's come out since and I haven't caught up, but I'm not clear whether this technology, the Consigli technology, is going to be something that they offer to clients as a new service, or whether it's something that they're going to leverage internally to enhance their service offering. That's the bit I'm not clear on.
So they brought, was it the founder or the CTO to become the head of AI at AECOM, was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure exactly what her role is, but it's
interesting.
I mean, it's probably similar to the Microsoft GitHub acquisition. Microsoft now owns GitHub, which is the service, but internally they get to now manage their code in GitHub exactly how they want to. They're acquiring, again, back to the buy, build, or rent. They're buying a knowledge capability which it would take too long for them to develop.
Do you think that, so at the moment now, there's this stronger likelihood of a lot more entrepreneurship, and there are some consultancy companies which are going to be slow to adapt because they're just feeling out, they're not sure if it's worth it or how much they invest, and AECOM have been quite bullish with that stance. Do you think there's any opportunity to invert the firm? Do you think there might be any small consultancies now who might be very AI heavy? For instance, MIT study again, the 5% who thrived were companies led by young people who focused on a single pain point and they accelerated through the solution.
Yeah.
So do you think that 5% now pose a risk to traditional consultancies next year, the next few years?
Yes and no. I do think so. I mean, you go back to any business model. I think there's always the opportunity for smaller startups to take a market share in a niche environment. Absolutely. We've seen that all through history. I mean, my own company, we focus typically right now on the legal market, small to medium legal firms, because they're typically not using AI as much as you'd think. And there's a massive amount of documentation. And there was a study from one of the big financial services firms around which of the roles are going to be automated. Legal services, architecture was in there.
Legal services are always in there, isn't it?
Yes. But here's the interesting thing, because legal, like many other professional services firms, is charged typically by the hour. You pay a lawyer by the hour. Yeah. So if you're now saying, okay, a law firm is using AI, so your hourly time is now reduced. So your revenue to clients and charge should reduce because you're spending minutes instead of hours. So how do you switch that revenue model? So some of these legal firms, and rightly so, and some other firms are resisting this because I'm not using AI because what do I charge my time for?
Well, it busts the whole model. The whole model is dead.
Have any found any? Have any of them found a solution?
So what I've seen and what we've done in our own, I used to work for Ernst & Young and Deloitte, and that was, although there was a fixed price to clients, there was often a per hour internally that we'd manage like many professional services firms. So what we've done is my own company, we've gone a fixed price, results based, but we're very clear, yes, we are using AI, but we're using the time to offer additional services. So one thing we might do with clients, if it's a 3 to 6 month engagement, we'll do weekly newsletters. So for one of our clients who's we're doing an AI project, we're doing AI tips every week. We send a newsletter to them saying, hey, here's a tip you can use.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, it's just, but again, it's additional things we can add on because A, we want to learn from this, but B, we're going to charge similar prices, but offer more value.
But that's relationship building as
Yeah.
well. You're actually it's upskilling, but it's more that, you're not just providing a service, but there's something tangible that they can get out of it as well for themselves.
And training for that. So when we learn how to do it, we'll then train them. So typically training was afterwards or an extra add-on to the engagement. Now it's part of the deal. We'll walk away from this project knowing you can do everything we could do. Often there's often ongoing need for help, which is cool, but we'll give them everything they need to keep going with this.
I wonder if we see anything the other way around. So far we've seen a consultancy buy a tech company. I wonder if we'll see any tech companies buy a consultancy doing it the other way around.
I think so. I mean, I have seen that in North America as well. There's often change management acquisitions. I mean, I don't know about in the UK because I've been in Canada 20 years now, but the change management was always very up and down. It was, in the early 2000s, it wasn't really there. And then mid to late 2010s, change management was huge. Everyone was doing change management. And then 5 years ago, it dropped and seems to be coming back again now. So hence to your point, I do think tech companies are acquiring the communication, change management skills of people to get their ideas across.
Sorry, change management because we're in a transitionary period. Is that why you think things are?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
because it is change management.
Yeah, the OCM, organizational change management. So yeah, I do think there's a need for that more and more. I think it's cyclical because I think what happens is a lot of tech companies a lot of tech projects go badly, and then one of the reasons they go better is user training, engagement, customer service, and that's really is a change management skill.
Yes.
So then they buy it, then it goes well for a bit, and then they cut costs. Say, oh, we don't need this change management.
It's a cycle.
So I just want to pick up on where we think regulation is going to go in 26, and then we'll talk about some macro level stuff, like with the technology. So RICS, I think, have led the way with some really good regulation. I would say that because I was involved in the drafting, but I genuinely think it's a useful document. Obviously, the problem with this technology, regulation is always behind the technology. The technology keeps moving. We've got the EU AI Act.
Yes.
Donald Trump has just released something saying that there's going to be one law in the US. I don't know how that's going to pan out. Where do you think do you think we're going to get a better, firmer grip on the regulation of these systems in 26?
Yeah, totally. I think governance in 2026 is going to be huge. I mean, EU AI Act is obviously affecting Europe. From a North American point of view, there's less, I'd say less AI regulation because it's following fast. There's a lot of data regulation. And what's interesting is personal private data, regardless of where you are, needs to be protected. And AI is just using that data. So what a lot of my companies are doing now is saying, okay, what AI governance do we put in place? And I always say, we'll start with your data privacy. How are you managing your data now? How are you protecting your client's data? Because that applies to AI, and that's your good foundation.
It is the foundation.
And then the next question is, okay, how do I implement the regulation? And then I go to AI orchestrators. These are roles within a company of people who need to know what AI is existing in your company. So who's using what AI, what for, and what decisions are made on which data. And that's going to be the implementation of the RICS and the EU AI Act to make it real in companies. They need someone to orchestrate it.
And it's so difficult. You do need somebody because it changes so fast. And then what does AI mean? Because AI is in everything now. Right?
Yes.
Do we say AI is Copilot, or is if someone's using Photoshop, which now has Nano Banana in, is that AI? Where do we draw the line?
Yes, exactly.
It's scary, but I mean, when you look at, it's like when you were looking at cars years and years ago, cars got a lot faster, they got a lot safer. So I think you're going to assume that AI models would get a lot safer. How we use them should be so that there'll always be rogue actors, but I think that the safety mechanisms, I think that the governance will come into play, but I think it will always be behind the curve.
It will be
Yes, it
naturally
will always
because
be
it's got
behind
to
the
react. And my worry is if you look back in history, sometimes it takes a major incident for regulators to catch up. So let's take the
Yes.
aeroplane, for instance. When planes were first invented, they never thought of as being domestic things.
Right.
They were thought of as a military thing. It wasn't until there was a major accident that the regulation caught up. And whilst we've had certain case studies or things where things have gone wrong, in inverted commas, I don't think we had a major issue yet. And my worry is with some of this regulation is it's going to take a major instance, some kind of cybersecurity thing for everyone to really wake up and say, we've got to do something about this.
I agree.
But also that we don't always know. You said it yourself. This is uncertain.
It is, yeah.
Right? You know, it's
very nature.
It's an unknown unknown. And I mean, the EU Act initially had deepfakes as quite low on its security level, right? When they were assessing it. There's going to be emerging risks that we haven't even thought of, or emerging behavior. I mean, models themselves blackmailing, or models showing some kind of bias, or
blackmailing. They did one of the broad one was blackmailing.
But also one of the things is we train these AIs based on human behavior, so they will have some similar form of bias that we do as humans. But also there's this other emerging risk where people are starting to be somewhat behaviorally programmed by the AIs without them even realizing it. And that's something which is very difficult to maintain and govern, because I've got my AI talking to me in a different way. You've got your AI talking to you in a different way. So yes, when the developers release their models and they have the developer prompts to kind of mitigate a lot of these issues, there's so much nuance between the way my AI acts and the way yours acts and where it goes for information. So I think there's going to be these emerging risks. And then it's, okay, when these emerging risks play out, they impact our cognition and our feelings. And the way us people communicate will be different. And so there's always these third, second, fourth consequences that I just don't think we're going to grasp until it might be a bit too late. So it's like there needs to be some kind of governance in place which looks to manage emerging risks before they happen.
Yes.
Just by following history, I guess, or technology.
I was building on that. I always go back to, I love frameworks and models. It's in breaking down. So I always use a 3M model. So monitor, measure, and manage. So we often do a very good at monitoring. We know what AI is being used, or any technology. It's sometimes managed, the second M, in terms of someone's looking after it, but sometimes. That's the gap, is the managed on the third one. So monitor, measure, and manage. So it's often measured. We know how many, we know who's using it, but the managed is often let down. There's a nominal person who isn't always looking after what they should be, or they're not empowered to properly manage it. And that would be the first thing, is coming into this, is have someone, a chief AI officer or some AI role, a champion, to look after the governance, to look after the rules, to interpret what's doing. And then to your point, who's using different AI to do different tasks. Because citizen development is happening with AI agents. Anyone can create an agent in Copilot these days. So they have the tools. So what are they using it for? And you don't want to create double agents, and that's the next
it gets very murky, doesn't it? Like, how do you control that?
Can I pose both of you a question? So we use a big technique at the moment is reinforcement learning, right? And that's to help guide the AI's behavior according to what we think is the right thing to do. So we have
mainly for robotics,
and we also have AIs which also judge others, so they can use smaller models to reinforce the behavior in larger models. But the problem I'm thinking is in my head is I forgot what I was going to say now.
We'll come back.
I kind of forgot what I was going to say.
But you were going to ask a question around we were talking about the measure.
Yes, this is it, right? Yeah. So if we've constrained AI to think the way that we want to think, and find breakthroughs in our own theories and our own methods, and the universal laws that we set, because we use reinforcement learning, we make it adapt to the way that we understand the world. But if we were to set these things free, to say, okay, we want you to solve the Raman hypothesis, we want you to solve cancer, and it can do it in a way that we are yet to understand using our own human theories, what happens then? Because it might be significantly positive, it might be massively beneficial to humanity, but we lose the idea or even the intelligence of how it's done that.
Wow, this is another brilliant segue onto
what
I wanted to talk. Like, where is this go? Are we gonna? Because what you're talking about is a road towards AGI, right? And so,
which is soon, right? People will think it's soon.
Well, that's why it was a brilliant segue, because obviously there's different opinions through all the main kind of frontier labs about when AGI is going to come. Do you think 2026 is going to be the point we hit some kind of AGI taken on board?
No, I actually don't. I think we'll get much better linear AI, general intelligence, not artificial general intelligence. So I mean, as I spoke to someone the other day about this, there was a conference in Calgary around the Future Summit of 2025, and we had a big AI topic, and we had some financial investors from Silicon Valley looking for companies that have AI and wanting to invest. And I was asking them, on the panel, what is AGI and where do you see it? And the great example was that current large language models work by understanding patterns. So if the oven is hot, I touch it and it's hot. The large language model will continue to do that. It would still touch it again, albeit much faster. It doesn't necessarily learn that that's hot. It learns to react knowing it's hot. It gets there quicker. So the new AGI would know never to touch that again, whereas large language models now know to touch, when they touch it, they just react quicker. So the whole computational models are just not set up to be AGI yet. My personal view is we need to look into some of the whole different computational models, but that's, to me, is going to be 2028, 2029, maybe 2 to 3 years is my prediction.
We might have a breakthrough next year in terms of what the framework, because I think it might be some kind of hybrid between reinforcement learning and the current large language models. So it does start learning.
Yes.
But maybe that, I'm confident that there may be a big breakthrough next year, and then it will be implemented in the years following that. But I think it could be quite an important year because everyone's looking at it now. There's so much money going into this. I kind of hopeful, and it'd be interesting to look back in 12 months that we'll get some kind of breakthrough in terms of the architecture or the technology, maybe.
Yeah.
I think as well, 2 things that I think might lead us to AGI. The first thing is embodied AI. Yeah. So, like I said before, large language models can describe gravity because they've understood it in the training that they've been trained on, the data they've been trained on. They don't experience gravity. And to me, if you have an embodied AI, can you start to instill the senses that we have as humans? I mean, you can in terms of its auditory perception or its speaking and the way that it moves, because it can feel, it's got haptic feedback, it can touch and feel things. And I think putting it into a human world will allow it to feel the things that we feel is one of the things that I think of. And also, when you mentioned reinforcement learning, my issue with the learning at the moment comes down to memory and the fact that it happens in instances. So you have pre-training and post-training, the deployed. Then you have you take the feedback and then you do the same thing over and over again. What I'm trying to talk about is continual learning. So if you touch something and it's really hot and it's hot, it will learn instantly. Like we do as humans, right? We learn in our perception, we go to sleep and we somehow dream, and all of that information is compressed into some kind of meaning and we can make sense of it very efficiently.
Yes.
They don't do that. They have to go through a whole training algorithm, and it costs so much money to compute to then be able to actually learn what it's learned. Yes. So the continual learning on the go is what's going to be the change.
What they're using for these robotics is using that, I think, much faster learning. So but that's maybe the next, what we'll finish on is where do we think robotics are going to go in 2026?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see, and I keep asking people this, remember where you are the first time you see a humanoid robot doing something like ordinary, like doing grocery or serving you. Do you think we're going to get there at 2026, or do you think that's further away?
So context again. So yes, in summary. So even arriving in Heathrow Airport earlier this week, there was a robot cleaning agent model going through the airport, and a guy walked in front of it, and it stopped and said, "Be careful, be careful." And I always go back to the original Total Recall of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and seeing
not the remake, that was still
exactly, and seeing all those robot taxis. But yeah, I mean, I think Yoshi made the point earlier around it's going to be the gradual acceptance of seeing new things, which is just going to get much, much faster. So I'm not sure where UK is in terms of robo-taxis yet, but Waymo have got a license to start in 2027. Okay, perfect. So US, it's open now. I was in one in Utah 3 months ago. It's insane. It's nuts. It's going so fast, and that is where we're going to start to see more robotized services. So in terms of a full autonomous humanoid robot in the home, no, I don't see that. Do I see a specific robot doing something specific in the home for, I don't know, maybe something basic like literally just loading the dishwasher? I know that's a bit clunky, but
vertical robots.
One specific task that it just does very, very well on its own with nothing else. Yes, I do see those things coming into particularly manufacturing and factories and buildings as well. But in terms of autonomous humanoid robots, that's going to be a few years out.
You think a few years? Because there's a lot of money being staked. Of course, Elon has awarded himself $1 trillion on the basis that we get some of these humanoid robots out. So
If
there's
he
a lot
grows the
riding
company,
on
yes.
it.
Yes.
I mean, robots itself, I mean, even if you disregard AI, there was that company that you can buy a robot from, and they will remote control the robot for you to do your house chores.
Really? Okay, I haven't heard of that.
I think
one.
I think they are a
That sounds
Scandinavian
great.
company.
That sounds good.
You buy the robot, they come into your home, and a person remote controls the humanoid
Yes.
robot to do tasks.
Yeah.
What's the
Now,
point of that then?
well, I
Might
guess-
as well just get the person doing it.
But I guess at that bit, if you have sensors and data,
Yeah.
you could potentially get the robot to send that data and feed it back to the company, right? So there is this kind of simulation of learning.
And there's oversight. There's a human behind
And there's
it. So
oversight.
there's a bit of trust, as in I know there's someone controlling that.
And
for
data
me.
is, I mean, data privacy is an issue.
Yeah,
You've got
it's
someone
seeing
looking into
it's seeing everything
It's
into what you do.
But it's crazy
yeah.
that these things actually, I mean, so robotics isn't just the AI piece, it's, you know, do you receive it at home? But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I don't think humanoid robots just yet.
I'm going to be controversial and say I think it's going to move faster than you guys think. I think
How
we might see. I think we might see use cases of humanoid robots by the end of next year.
I
Who do you
mean,
think,
I'd
who do
love
you think
that.
will lead?
Tesla.
You think Tesla?
Yeah.
Not Figure.
I think Tesla. There's so much riding on it now. I think. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm
excited
super
for it.
excited by
Yeah.
it because this is
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it becomes real. I mean, I always go back to, you remember the first time you saw someone with an iPhone, it was like, wow, let me see your iPhone. And
Yeah.
then the second time you go, oh, that guy's got an iPhone, let me check it. And then the third time it becomes ordinary. And I'm sure the same will happen with humanoid robots. You'll be like, the first time you see one, it'll be like the biggest thing. And then it'll just merge into society.
James, all you want is someone to play guitar with you.
No, I just want
The band.
C3PO.
or someone play the drums so we can do the bass guitar.
Better than me, yeah, exactly. Listen, it's been an incredible conversation. So much we've unpacked so much in the time we've had. John, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
For sure. Check me out on LinkedIn. I post most days on LinkedIn. And check out my website, which is wedeliveryourvision.com.
And it's been absolutely brilliant. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas and New Year. And to all of our listeners, thank you very much for supporting us throughout 2025. Have a brilliant Christmas and New Year. And we'll be back in 2026.
Yes. Happy Christmas.
Bye, everyone.